Welcome to the IT Security One-to-One Summit podcast series. Listen to industry insiders discuss the most critical issues in IT security. Featured on this episode, Malcolm Harkins, Chief Information Security Officer of Cylance Corporation, talks with Carol Weaver, Vice President, IT Security of GM Financial. You are listening to the IT Security One-to-One Summit podcast series.
Hi, I'm Malcolm Harkins, Chief Information Security Officer with Cylance Corporation, and I'm here with Carol Weaver from GM Financial. Thanks for joining me, Carol.
Thank you for having me.
You know, we've had some discussions today and over the course of the One-to-One Summit here about a number of different topics, and one of the ones that I was interested in your thoughts on were retention and growing employees and some of the opportunities and challenges we all have in that, given what we're faced with day in and day out.
And that's been one of the key topics here, not just at this conference, but with other professionals that I run into. It's not a my corporation type issue, but something we're seeing across the industry. I mean, we've got everything I hear is there may be a 2% unemployment rate to a negative 3%. So basically, there is no unemployment in this area, right? And as we look at that, starting to retain quality talent, trying to recruit quality talent becomes a major obstacle, in supporting your industry and keeping, I guess, your business secure. So we've had to really, go out and become creative. I read an article the other day, and, there were a couple of industries. One of them said they are going to start paying for college tuition to help increase the benefits. And another one was increasing maternity and paternity leave. And another one said, I am going to change the incentive that I give my employees for trying to help recruit other people. And so what they did was they said, instead of giving you money, I'm going to give you a vacation, and you can go here or there. And, one of the things that came back out of that was that the employees jumped all over that. So I don't have, from my perspective, it's hard. And what we found is some of our best avenues for recruiting is your social media. Engineer to engineer is huge. You look at why do people leave and what do they want if they leave? Because you have to know that if you're going to recruit good talent, right?
Yep.
And so what we found is they want a challenging, dynamic environment. Engineers, they want competitive salaries, they want good benefits, health care, compensation, the same types of things we all want. And they want to come to work today and look forward to coming to work. So you have to create that positive, atmosphere that challenges them, keeps them motivated, has them working in an environment where they have other engineers that, they're bouncing off of every day. And that's something I think we really have to look at. But they're not out there. You have to go find them. And I found that my engineers, either whether it's our recruiters hitting social media or the engineers going to vendor conferences or to, meetings such as professional meetings, that networking seems to really get us the best recruiting efforts of anything we've seen. And at the end of the day, there's one thing we can't forget, and that's what we have to remember as our own employees. We cannot forget to quit recruiting them, to quit making sure that they are happy, that they like coming to work every day. Because if you don't take care of your own network and your people, someone else is going to recruit them.
Yeah, definitely true. Do you find that there's any potentially sector-specific challenges or location-specific challenges you run into? Or do you think it's pretty consistent across the board of you relative to maybe peers in other industries and other physical locations?
Well, we're here in San Francisco today, and I'm from Dallas. And I'm seeing the same challenges, right? Whether it's the person I was sitting at the table who's from D.C. or someone here locally or me who's in Dallas, we're all having the same problem.
Yep. How about international? I know we were chatting earlier with some of the international dynamics you're dealing with. Do you have specific unique training or maybe slightly different recruiting strategies on an international level?
IT engineers tend to have the same types of skill set. Doesn't matter whether they're in the UK or they're in the US or they're in Brazil. I think at the end of the day, people are taking care of the really good folks, so you've got to build an environment to make them want to come work with you. And so I'm facing the same challenges there as I am here.
Yeah, I think what you've just kind of articulated on is something that we're all seeing. Again, it's a global problem. It's a global business challenge for us as leaders in the information security industry. And that kind of leads me to kind of one of the next global challenges that we were chatting about a little bit earlier. And it's the volume of activities, it's the volume of alerts and challenges. Can you share, what your perspective is on that, how you approach that, and the things you're trying to look towards to prioritize what to work on?
No, absolutely. And Malcolm, I appreciate you bringing that up because we were talking about that earlier, right? The threat landscape is changing daily. Everyone knows what the signatures are, so that's not, adequate anymore. We've got to be ahead of the curve. We've got to be looking at what's different and starting to, as we do that, there are solutions being developed to address those problems, right? But they're all generating alerts. And I saw one report and it said that some companies are getting 10,000 plus alerts a day or a month, based on the size. And out of that, over 50% are false positive or redundant alerts. So now then you look at an organization and, right, that's what we were speaking about.
Yeah, and we were talking about the alert fatigue that we all see and feel. And you were even mentioned earlier when you get up in the morning at 6 a.m. and you look and so what happened while I was sleeping? What's the alert volume? So you're constantly geared with what we're seeing, the whack-a-mole game that we were chatting about earlier.
Well, exactly, and I think that's where, as a security industry, we really have to feed each other's intelligence and make our information become more intelligent, right? So in other words, reduce the false positives because we share knowledge about what we're seeing on the threat landscape, reduce the number of alerts we're seeing, and then as a business, I think it's critical. I look at my house. I don't know if I care that everything in my house, if it's protected, but there are some things that I'm really passionate about, and I want to make sure that those, use the term crown jewels, or that my critical assets are protected. So as a business, that's our key data points. It's our key areas of business, and we've got to make sure that we are focusing our efforts on those areas, right?
Yeah, getting in line with the business priorities and the things that could be disruptive if it's an availability type of an attack that could affect critical operations, or if it's a loss of money, a loss of intellectual property, or something like that. What are, as you said, those crown jewels that would matter most, that would have a material significant impact to the corporation or your customers?
And that's where I think it's key. Figure out what logs you want to keep or what you need to keep. Focus in on the alerts that are important to making sure you're managing the risk to those key areas, right? And be sure that they are actionable. Because if I'm generating alerts, it should have an action associated with it. Otherwise, I just need to correlate it, put it in my SIM or whatever. And I think that's something that I've heard throughout this conference and, with other associates or other security people that I'm visiting with, the professionals, that they have that same issue. We've got to get this down to something that we can manage. Because if we're not watching, then we've increased our risk by not being able to watch because of the volume.
Right, and if you can take steps that alleviate the alerts because you've actually been able to stop things from occurring to begin with, again, you can shrink the amount of whack-a-mole that you're playing day in and day out.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And that's where I think we as an industry have got to get to. And I think we're working on that because we are sharing and collaborating with the vendors and the industry professionals and feeding the knowledge to each other to make sure that we are adequately assessing our risk, assessing the threat landscape, which is changing, and getting this to something where we can correlate information and manage what we're seeing and pay attention.
Thank you, Carol, for your insights and thoughts today, and I'd like to say it was a great conversation because I think your lessons learned and the perspective that you have from your time at GM is useful for all of us to walk away and rethink about what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Thank you for having me today.
Thanks for listening to the IT Security One-to-One Summit podcast series. To listen to other podcasts or for more information on the IT Security One-to-One Summit, visit us at one2onesummits.com/ITSec. That's ONE2ONE summits.com/ITSEC.